Back in July, Kumar and I took a look at the first omnibus volume of Mitsuru Adachi's manga Cross Game, a baseball story overlaying the real story about dealing with tragedy and remembering someone we've lost, but also including a fair amount of goofy comedy and fourth wall breaking. This week, we finally come back to Cross Game as we discuss the second omnibus, which includes regular-sized volumes 4 and 5. By the way, Deconstructing Comics is now on Blue Sky. Look us up at Decon Comics. This is Tim.
And this is Kumar.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo, adjusting my microphone here with Kumar in Melbourne. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
All right.
It's 41 degrees here, Celsius.
Yeah, it's about 41 Fahrenheit here in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds pretty steamy there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's dry.
But dry. Okay. So, yeah, but sizzling, maybe would that be a good word?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. So we're picking up, a few months ago, we talked about the first omnibus volume of Cross Game by Mitsuru Adachi, and we're going to talk about the second one today. And so reading this, I'm thinking, what observations can I make about this comic that I haven't already made? And so it came to me reading this again. I could kind of state things this way. Mitsuru Adachi is the Taika Waititi of manga.
Okay, interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing where this is going.
Because, now I haven't seen much of his stuff other than the Thor movies, but I've read some reviews also. And it's always pointed out that in Waititi's movies, he'll hit you with something funny and then kind of pull the rug out from under you and give you something sad, and then turns it around and makes it funny again. And this comic is similar. Just kind of this mixture of feelings coming at you. You know, he'll bring up Wakaba's death from the first volume, and you're just ready to cry, and then he spends 2 or 3 pages breaking the fourth wall, throwing in some dumb inside joke.
Yeah. Some puns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's partly true. What I found was that the death of Wakaba from Volume 1 is still casting a long shadow, right, over the series. I didn't feel like there was as much back and forth this time as, like, here's something really heavy, here's something light. Maybe because a lot is occupied with this one game. Yeah,
so this book, I should say, the first omnibus volume had 3 volumes in it. This one only has 2 for some reason.
Yeah,
so
they're all 2 from
4 and 5.
They're all 2 from here out. Yeah,
okay,
because I think there was 11 or 17. I can't remember the math, but anyway.
So chapters 21 through 40. The first 15 of which are all concerned with this scrimmage game between the varsity baseball team and the kind of JV team that they call the Portables. And so, I mean, like, Wakaba's death doesn't come up an awful lot during that. It's more focused on the baseball. And then those last 5 chapters, it comes up more. And we have some hanky moments. And some inside jokes and some fourth wall breaking.
Yeah. There's I was just looking at some stuff online, and one of the reviews about this book mentioned that each chapter of the scrimmage game is 1 inning. And I never picked up on that, if it's correct. I don't know if it's correct or not, but
there's like 15 of, well, I guess the first 1 or 2 are like before the game.
Yeah. There's a few before the actual game is played, and then I guess, I mean, as I said, I'm not sure if it's correct or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's that neat.
But this was, I mean, kind of hard for me to follow, because this was more like specific baseball stuff. And when we talked about this last time, we never talked about your knowledge of baseball. We established I know nothing about baseball.
So I understand the game reasonably well. I mean, there are some heavy-duty baseball terms in here like breaking ball, which I did have to look up just to make sure I understood it correctly, that it's a pitch that suddenly drops just as you're getting ready to hit it.
Right.
And I didn't really know that this hitting for the cycle was a thing where you hit.
Yeah, what is that?
The same player in one game hits a single, a double, a triple, and a home run. Which Ko does during the scrimmage game.
Okay. I thought it was going to be something about coming back up to bat after you've already batted once. See, because I assumed it was a cycle. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I hadn't been aware that was a thing, but I picked out what it was.
Okay. Yeah, all that kind of stuff was kind of a struggle for me. I talked at last volume about how the amazing thing about the manga is you don't need to know anything about baseball. You kind of did, but I mean, I was kind of waiting for the final scores through the whole 12 or 15 chapters, whatever. Like, just give me the score and tell me what happens kind of thing. But I realized I was kind of becoming desensitized to the amazingness of Adachi's art. And he's kind of doing all the same things he was doing before, but it's just in the context of the game. The scenes I liked most in the game were the silent scenes where there's a fast pitch and somebody swings and misses or hits or something like that. That was the stuff. When they were talking about the baseball, I was like, okay, whatever, let's get past this.
Yeah, like the batter swings and you got a couple other reaction shots and then you see the baseball in the catcher's mitt. And because it hit so hard and went straight to the catcher's mitt and avoided getting hit. I was struggling with it just because, if you don't remember the players' faces, sometimes you can kind of get lost which team is up to bat and which team is, because there's no color. And even if there were, I think they're wearing the same uniform because they're from the same school.
That's right.
So, if they were wearing different colors, then that would make it an awful lot easier, just like when you're watching a real game, to figure out which team is which.
I did find myself flipping back and forth. Like, I'd go back. I thought I knew what was happening, and I'd have to go back 5 or 6 pages or 10 pages and reread the scene and figure out which side was pitching and which side was batting at that particular moment. And I mean, this time we get every player is named, right? Yeah. Every fielding player, every batter. We learn their year, but these are all minor characters. They're not.
You don't see them outside of the baseball scenes.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like the other characters that we've had very deep, and they're not. I mean, they're not important characters, but we get all this. We do get full names for all these people. I guess it's a question of. I mean, you have to do it right. To create a fully rounded world, which Adachi is doing here. He needs to have. These aren't just stick figures. He's actually. Yeah,
you have to make up all these players and give them personalities.
I mean, they're not fully rounded characters, but they've got their own faces, right? He draws a distinct face for everybody. He's given them names as if he's built whole teams that this world can occupy. So it's kind of necessary. As a creator, you'd be wondering, should I just not bother with these people because it's going to be confusing for the readers, or do I need to put in this detail to make it seem like a more lived-in world? And I think you have to put in the detail. I think it's a lot like, he's so great with either draining the detail out of a panel or pouring it all in. It's part of the tempo, which is the amazing thing about Cross Game, is how he is able to speed it up and slow it down as necessary. And something I don't know if we talked about a lot last time was we talked about the establishing shots of buildings, like the batting center or the sports store. But there's some attention to nature. There's certain panels, especially down by the riverside, which we had in the first Omnibus and in this one, that are really these lush green, flowing river with all these trees around it. and it seems so out of place. It's like, and the first time we see that in Volume 1 is right when Wakaba dies. It's like a cutaway to nature. It's like, can't even look at the people or the city. It's just empty. It's empty nature with no people around. Is the first time we have that kind of scene. So he can use it for kind of meaning too. But it's the thing he's doing with the players is kind of similar. It's like he can put in some detail about the players' names and give them faces or something like that. And it's only helping, I think. I don't think it hurt. Although, I mean, I stopped tracking them. He was free to tell me their names, but I'm like, I don't remember this guy's name or what this guy's deal is. I had a very hard time following along who's who. Like you said, I had to.
Well, as I usually do, I managed to read it twice, and the second time I was kind of glomming onto the characters more, the different players, and he's up to bat again, and
yeah. You gotta especially keep track of the pitchers, because then you know whose team is against who. I found because that so Senda, who is he's kind of the comic relief character in the first Omnibus. He's one of the few players that made it up to the varsity team. I think only like 5 players from the original team.
For first years, or
or something like made it up to varsity, and but they're in the middle of the scrimmage game. He does something wrong to piss off the coach. I can't remember what it was, but he's demoted to the farm team mid game.
Yeah, I think he just didn't pitch well enough, and the extremely egotistical coach Daimon just said, "No, this isn't your bench anymore," and so he went over to the other team.
He just walks over there. He understands completely. Like, okay, I'm out of here, and he's playing for the other side in the middle of the game. But then I had to keep track of who the other pitcher was. I think his name is Kamiyama or Kamiya. So I was like, okay, I got to keep my eye on that guy because I know he's the pitcher for that side. So that one character. That was interesting about the coach too, because later on in this game, one of the varsity players defies that coach and makes a decision on their own, which is a correct decision. And then later on, when they're like practicing, the coach calls out the batters, and this guy has
the roster for the next game, and
and the guy's been benched. He's been benched because he basically showed him up.
He showed the other players that the coach had made an incorrect decision. And he just won't stand for that. He wants to be God here.
You can see how this is going to be the downfall of this coach.
Oh, yeah. Right? I mean, you can see it's probably going to be several books from now, but you can see like some resentment is building among the varsity players against him. And he keeps saying like the people who are on the portables team will never, ever, ever come up to the varsity team, because that would mean that he made a mistake the first time around by not choosing them. You can, and every time you see him, and also the interim principal, they've got villainous looks on their faces. They never smile without their eyebrows being down. So these are the bad guys.
Yeah, we did talk about how they're kind of, especially the principal seems to be like cartoonishly bad last time. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I have read this series twice before, but I don't really remember. But maybe they'll change. I don't know. It's interesting whether we've established them as truly one-dimensional and they're never going to change, or is something going to change for these characters? They're going to come around in some way.
Yeah, I don't know. I could only guess at how it's going to go. Will the portables coach end up getting promoted and they toss Daimon, or?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get... No. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. It's actually a real big... Actually, now you've really unlocked it for me, because it's like, well, the whole point is for Kitamura, our main character, to make it to Koshien because that was Wakaba's dream. To see him at Koshien.
Wakaba had said he could be the best baseball player in Japan if he puts his mind to it, and every so often that keeps getting brought up, and that reminds us of Aoba.
Yeah,
or Wakaba. Sorry,
Wakaba. So that means that Ko has to either make it up to varsity, either because the coach, what was his name?
Daimon.
Either Daimon's going to have he's going to change his ways, he's going to change his stripes, or he's going to be removed, and something's going to change that allows the farm team players to actually make it up to varsity. And it's also hard to imagine that, I mean, there were 3 of the younger players that didn't bother to try out for varsity at all.
Including Ko. Yeah.
Akaishi and Nakanishi.
Yeah. Their names are too similar.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, I should say hard to imagine. It would be unsatisfying if Ko made it to Koshien, but not those 2 guys. Right? At least one of those 2 guys you'd want to be there with him in that climactic game in the final omnibus, right?
Yeah, well, and Wakaba's sister Aoba, you feel like she would have to end up on the team too, even though she's a girl.
Yes. What's going to happen there? That's a big question. Yeah.
And Daimon, I think so the portables had who was it? Akaishi spying on the varsity team, but Daimon doesn't know that. But at the same time, he's kind of helping the portables get more data because he, in the first volume, used Aoba as a pitching machine, and now she knows all the weaknesses of all the batters, and she's sharing that information with the portables. And also, when he sent Senda over to the portables, now he's got intelligence he can share too.
Yeah.
So Daimon's not that smart.
Yeah, he's overconfident, right? It's total hubris. He believes that. I think he feels that even if they have that information, it's not going to be of any help to them because they're such a crap team, the farm team, or that his team is so great that they're just completely unbeatable by a bunch of players that he rejected.
Right.
Although
the scrimmage game doesn't turn out the way he expected it to. The varsity team does win, but not by nearly as many points as he expected.
And I have to say, it didn't go the way I expected either. And again, I was having trouble following the game, but I still had kind of expectations about it. So what happens is there's a cute scene before the game where Ko invites Aoba out. He says, "Come with me."
Park.
And he takes her to the park, and it's a makeout point. There's all these couples in there making out, and she's like, "Where are you taking me?" And then he stops in his tracks, and she turns, and she's got like a karate pose, like she's about to attack him. But then he's got his baseball, and he wants her to judge his pitching.
Yeah.
Like, is he at a level that he can take on this?
Yeah, because he's practiced pitching a lot, but he's never pitched in a real game.
That's right. Yeah, so there was, where was I going with this?
So the game didn't turn out the way you expected, even though you read the comic before.
Right. So she makes a deal with him that if he can keep them to under 5 runs, she will treat him to a spaghetti at the cafe. Okay, so now the game starts, and the junior varsity team, the farm team, gets 3 runs in like the first inning. So it's 3-0.
I think it's maybe the second.
But I don't know baseball, so I'm thinking, is this like soccer where if you get 1 point you're doomed? Like if the other team gets 1 point you're doomed, that's it. It's going to be 1-0 if you're lucky. No, but then there's kind of a switch, and it does go up and down a bunch of times, and my expectation was that they were going to lose the game, but he was going to keep them to under 5 runs, and he was going to win his spaghetti. And that's not how it turns out, because there's the 9th inning turnaround.
Right. Now, but I don't know what the original Japanese was, but I thought that the language in the English was kind of fuzzy. So Ko says, if I hold the varsity team to under 10 runs, treat me to a Neapolitan at Clover. She says, keep them within 5 runs. So when you say within, I feel like we're talking about the difference in points between the two teams.
Oh.
It should have kept the same wording as what Ko said. Keep them under 5, not within. Keep them under.
I guess within means 5 and under.
5, yeah, 5 and under, yeah, because 5 was qualifying, but they end up with 6.
Yeah.
But it was still kind of unclear to me. I mean, we never saw him eating the spaghetti, but I was still kind of, now, did he win the spaghetti or not?
No, I'm pretty sure he didn't, because they got 6 runs, and he needed to keep them at 5. So I was expecting a small victory out of this first game, but that's not what they gained out of it. They gained the experience of, playing this game, and Ko's pitching was better than he expected it to be. He actually struck out a lot of players, etc.
Yeah, and he hit for the cycle. Coming up, the evolving relationship between Ko and Aoba, the mysterious old guy with a strong interest in high school baseball, an unexpected ghost story that ends up being both emotionally resonant and hilarious, and more. By the way, don't forget we have a voicemail. To leave us a message, click the Leave a Voicemail link on the sidebar at deconstructingcomics.com. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. At $2 a month and up, hear Bat Bits, a Batman 66 exploration with my brother Paul. At $4 a month, you also get our new monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I discuss Batman comics from the 50s and 60s with either Paul, Patrick, Emmett, or Kumar, as well as our previous series on Jim Starlin's run on Captain Marvel and the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support. On To the Batpoles podcast, we've enjoyed going through early versions of scripts from the 1966 Batman TV show, which can reveal the original intent of certain lines and what the producer's changes to the scripts might tell us about this version of Batman. As Paul and I work towards publishing a book about the show's first season, which will include observations about these early scripts, we realized there are still 6 first-season scripts that we haven't examined. So that's our focus for the first part of 2025. Listen at tothebatpoles.libsyn.com or on any podcast app. Ad-free versions of the show available at patreon.com/deconcomics for $2 a month, as well as Patreon-only Bat Talk in our Bat Bits show. We hope you'll join us as we turn the switch hidden in the Shakespeare bust and exclaim, "To the Batpoles!" Now, I was really interested in his relationship with Azuma on the varsity team. Because, I mean, at points he's actually getting pitching pointers from Azuma.
Yeah.
And also, in the scrimmage game, after Azuma gets 3 home runs off of him, then the next time he's at bat, Aoba says it's intentional. She can tell it's intentional. Hits 2 foul balls, and which are counted as strikes.
Yeah.
And then takes a pitch right over the plate, which is strike 3, and he basically lets Ko strike him out. And I thought that was really interesting.
Very curious. What did you make of it?
They're going to be friends by the end of this, I think.
I think there's certainly kind of respect. At this stage, or the beginnings, budding of respect.
Azuma can tell that he's a really good pitcher.
Yes. So I was curious about this, letting him strike him out. Why do you think he did that? Because I actually wasn't sure if he had let him strike him out or whether Ko had actually done it through skill. What was your take on it?
I mean, because Aoba recognizes that Azuma is intentionally fouling, I take it to mean that he let Ko strike him out, although I don't know that Ko quite gets that.
Yes, I agree with that too.
Ko's bragging about how he struck out, their best home run hitter, and I think he's not realizing that he let him.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering what Azuma's motivation was.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's part of it might be a bit of rebellion against Coach Daimon.
Right. That could be it too. There's something going on there, yeah.
Because he keeps making some comments, like he told another player, like, you didn't make a mistake by coming to the school, but, and then it's just kind of left. But I think he's taking a jab at the coach there.
Yeah. What did you feel like the relationship between Ko and Alba made any progress in this omnibus? So they've had they have a kind of contentious relationship from her end. She finds him to be a nuisance, annoying.
But I felt like she didn't show that to the extent that she did in the first volume. She's not as angry at him. And when he's not around, she talks about him in a positive way. Yeah. Certainly as a baseball player. Yeah. And, of course, we saw in the first volume that some of that might be resentment about how he kind of hogged Wakaba's time. Yes. And Alba didn't get to spend as much time with her as she'd wanted. And then Alba drowned at swimming camp, and that was that. So I think it's connected to Wakaba's death.
Yeah. And we did know that Alba had this childhood silly, girlish idea that she would marry a man who could pitch 100 miles an hour or something like that. Mm-hmm. And now there's a suggestion that maybe Ko will work towards that, or is building up to that point. But I don't think they are getting anywhere. I don't think there's any romantic progress in this volume. Mm-hmm. But yes, you're right. I think that she's chilled a little bit.
Yeah. In those last 5 chapters, when the portables are doing their special secret training out in the woods somewhere, she basically volunteers to take him a bag that he forgot to take with him. Yeah. And I don't think she would have done that in the first volume.
No, and it's very subtle. That's a great point. It's really... There's no commentary about it. It's just like, what? She's coming out here with the bag?
Well, that's kind of typical of this comic, because a lot of things go by without... You have to kind of intuit stuff and pay really close attention, because he doesn't lay it all out for you or have a character comment about something, or maybe the comment is made, but it's so vague you have to kind of finish it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So meanwhile, we've also got that old guy. Again, this is moving at a very glacial pace, and yet it's not. It just breezes by, but everything happening very slowly in very minor increments. Mm-hmm. And we get this old guy. So in the first omnibus, there was this old fella that was hanging around Akeshi's parents' liquor store all the time and drinking with Akeshi's father, and seems to have a keen interest in high school baseball for some reason. We don't know. And then he drove away in a chauffeured limousine.
He didn't drive. His chauffeur drove.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. He rode away a chauffeured limousine. And we're like, oh, this is mysterious. And he said he has to go see his granddaughter. We don't know anything about what's going on specifically. And in this volume, he shows up at the scrimmage, but he's kind of hiding in the corner. Mm-hmm. And then Alba spots this old guy, and says, hey, come sit down at the front. There's lots of seats. Come sit with me. And he sits with her, and she reveals that she's read all these players. She knows all about them. But also, when she introduces herself, he says, oh, so you're Alba. And he wasn't supposed to reveal that he kind of knew her. So he's got some kind of...
Yeah, when she asks his name, he says, oh, well, people my age, they just call Grandpa.
Yeah, that's
He
right.
won't even tell what his real name is.
No, yeah. So again, we get nothing. We get no more data on this guy, except that he knows more than he should, and he's observing them secretly. There's another scene too where he's in his limo, or his chauffeured car, and like the students almost spot him, but they zoom away quickly enough.
This was in those last 5, like it's chapter 36 where they're at the baseball tournament, and hang on a second, I had a note here I wanted to say. No, not 36, 37. They're at the National Baseball Championships in Tokyo, which is held in August, distinct from the invitational Koshien tournament in Hyogo in, I think it's like a Golden Week, isn't it? I think it's in the spring. Or I forgot to check exactly when that is, but that's earlier in the year. So it's summer vacation, it's August, and the varsity team is in the national championships, and the portables are hanging around just in that chapter. And the car goes by, and Akaishi sees the car go by and says, what? It can't be. And the old guy in the car kind of ducks down so they won't see his face.
Yeah.
So, he's like somebody big in baseball, apparently, but he doesn't want anybody to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... Yeah, and he doesn't want Akaishi to know that he's at that regional tournament, the regional game. Yeah, interesting.
Curious.
It'll get unpacked. There's only a couple of scenes in here about him, but
right.
It's enough. It's more, again, it's more of that Adachi tempo. Here's 2 things about this guy over 400 pages. Yeah, so after the game is kind of when it kind of kicked back in for me. Where I zoomed back into it. Because immediately he goes to the cemetery. Ko goes to the cemetery and tells he's standing at Wakaba's grave and speaking out loud and saying what happened in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the next chapter, 36, it's Wakaba and Ko were born on the same day, and it's their 16th birthdays. And so, in Japan, often on like the birthday of someone who's died, they'll have a little altar to the person in their home, and they might set some food there. And so a piece of birthday cake is set in front of Wakaba's photo. And mysteriously, Ko is seen going around with the interim principal's daughter, who is also the manager of the varsity team. And she's kind of, I'm not sure what the right word for her is, without using gendered language.
She's snooty?
Snooty, maybe? That's a good one. And he's hauling around all her shopping for her as she goes to different stores. And they stop by the Clover restaurant. Well, Wakaba, sorry. Why do they both end with ba?
They all have leaf names.
Leaf names,
right? Don't they all?
And so yes, and the little one Momiji, that's like autumn leaves.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So Aoba is working there, and there are all kinds of conflicts between her and what's her name, Disa, the interim principal's daughter. She wants to pay with a credit card, and the restaurant doesn't take credit cards, but she doesn't have any cash on her, and so it's
part of it is probably very, very subtle romantic tension that Ko has been hanging out with this girl, the manager.
Yeah, right? And also Senda thinks that Ko is trying to get on the varsity team and stab everybody else in the back.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of mystery, and there's some comedy to it, and then it turns out that it's, I don't want to reveal it exactly, but it's a Wakaba-related reason.
It is touching. It is like, we've had the cemetery scene, which was very touching, with a bit of a joke at the end of it. There's a bit of a punchline, because the guy at the graveyard, knows about the game, and like corrects him as he's telling Wakaba what happened. And then we get this scene, which is kind of also, there's a lot of laughs in it, but then there's like a really touching, we find out why he really is carrying this woman shopping around for her.
Right, we get the hankies out there, yeah.
Yep. And then suddenly we cut to,
the baseball tournament,
the tournament, and it's really, there's, again, I felt like, I don't care about baseball, but I could feel a bit of like excitement building up. Like we're slowly gearing up towards Koshien as we get this regional championship, and you get this establishing shot of the stadium. And like we get a map of Japan and how like everything's kind of, it's an amazing page where you get the
teams from all over the country.
And it's very subtle, and it's very similar to the way Adachi does when seasons pass. He'll just have a page and he'll have a few captions that say January turns to February turns to March. Very simple. Have a few drawings of some clouds. That's enough. And it's really effective. And this is really effective for giving you a sense of the excitement kind of building for the work towards Koshien. Yeah.
So the tournament is still going on through the rest of this volume, but the portables have gone to the secret special training in the countryside, as we mentioned.
They've been locked out of
the portable shack,
Yeah, Daimon has like locked them out of their own training grounds.
For scoring so many points, that's their punishment.
Yeah.
And so they're out there, and the coach Maino is pushing them much more than in the past.
Yes,
I think because he's come to believe in them.
He was a nice old guy, and then suddenly he's gone really hard on them. We haven't seen him go this hard on them, training them before. By the way, there was a bit about there's a scene where that old coach takes off his hat and he's got a bandage on his head, and Senda asks what happened, and they gave him this story about how he had this physical altercation with Daimon, and Daimon hit him, and that turns out to be a lie.
Yeah.
So we never learn,
not in this volume anyway,
where that bandage came from. And they had some second lie planned. We learn some second made up story, and we don't know what that was or why.
Yeah, he and the chubby girl manager, I forgot her name. I don't know how she gets that braid to stick out horizontally all the time.
Yeah, it's very tight braid.
So, but in chapters 38 and 39, when Aoba is taking this bag out to Ko, it's kind of complicated to explain, but she ends up at the wrong bus stop and goes to this other, like, so they're practicing near an old elementary school, but she ends up at this different old elementary school that's closed and is supposedly haunted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a ghost story that ends up with like a funny twist ending. But also, the supposed ghosts are some girls who drown, and it kind of evokes Wakaba again.
It sure
too.
does. This was really a great chapter because we get another shift. It becomes a ghost story, a scary ghost story. Mm-hmm. Very unexpected narrative turn. A bit like that chapter in the first Omnibus where they stop that home invader. There's like home invasion that they see from the train, and then they beam this guy with a baseball and knock him out, and you're like, what is all this stuff? And it's a bit like that. But this one is a bit more thematically tied because there's a scene where Senda and Ko are waiting at the bus stop for her to show up, and she's not turning up, of course, because she's gone to a different stop. But Senda's complaining about how hard the old man is working them. And Ko says it's better to be busy during summer. It keeps you from thinking too much. Which to me he was talking about Wakaba in that line, was my assumption from that. It's very subtle, but I assumed he didn't want to be thinking about Wakaba all the time because it's summertime. And so we've got this haunted river, and then we hear it's, as you said, sisters who drowned in the river. And we get panels of this river in nature, which are very similar to those panels we got when Wakaba died in the first Omnibus, where, as I mentioned before, we cut away from all human people and just have shots of a forest and a river.
Well, what really struck me was the page where Senda and Ko are wandering near the river, and Senda says, "Don't go down there, Kitamura," and Ko says, "Doesn't matter if they're ghosts or not. Their family and friends, and especially childhood friends, would want to see them." And so then you know what he's thinking.
Yeah.
But again, it's subtle, like a lot of this book is.
Yes. Yeah, and so then she finds, once all this funny ghost stuff happens, it is really a haunted house chapter with a really weird, funny punchline to it about the ghost of the old lady that was guiding them.
Yeah.
But then we find out that Ko has been, when the other players are on break, Ko's like training by himself. Like training hard, like running. And we don't know quite what Alba will... I think it's... Again, we only get reaction shots, really, but the coach tells her that Ko's like out running by himself. He goes jogging. She assumes he's slacking off, and the coach says no, he'll be jogging.
Yeah. The coach says, if he were that kind of ace, none of the others would be trying this hard. One rousing game was all it took to make everyone a fan of Ko Kitamura.
Yeah. Yeah, and and then she's on the bus on the way home, and she says to herself, "Portables fight." And the bus driver says, "Did you say something, miss?" So she's kind of on their side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe because she sees all the hard work he's doing.
Yeah, you can kind of see, like you said, glacially how things are changing in various, among various characters in this book.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to say about it. We're at the end,
I think so. Again, last time I had, we had 600 pages, and I didn't have a lot of notes that time either, because a lot of it's just like balls flying through the air and stuff, and
landing and catching catcher's mitts. And
absolutely.
Everybody
and
looking shocked.
Every time I'm impressed, but you only write that down once. But I think there's definitely, like, especially these last few chapters after the game, you get teases of, okay, how's this gonna go? You're really wondering about all of those moving parts. And again, there are a lot of characters, like, ignore all the other players, the bench players or whatever, or the fielders, but the coaches and Aoba and all those other characters, and how all the varsity players are relating to Daimon, all that stuff is kind of, those questions have all been seeded, and you're very curious about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
With all of them.
Cross Game by Mitsuru Adachi is published in English by Viz Media. Thanks to our patrons for supporting Deconstructing Comics, Critiquing Comics, and our other podcasts. To join them, go to patreon.com/deconcomics. At deconstructingcomics.com, you can connect to us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky, and find links to subscribe to the podcast. You can comment on any episode on our site, drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, my Law of Equivalent Exchange co-host Patrick joins us for another of his studies of traditional Japanese monsters as portrayed in manga. This time we'll be focusing on oni, which are something like ogres in Western folktales, but a bit more complex. Join us for the complete scoop next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.